Well, welcome once again. This is the Doctor of Digital at the Doctor of Digital podcast. And of course, what I have today is another great episode and hope you enjoy as much as I've been looking forward to this. For this particular episode, this is about the reliability of wealth creation in an age of inequality, while investing must become compassionate again. The show exists to awaken wisdom, spark clarity, and help thinkers, leaders, and creators live with a depth of purpose the modern world has largely forgotten. What happens when a capital strategist, ecosystem architect, best-selling author, and nationally ranked podcast host sets her life's mission towards one goal, reimagining private equity as a tool for human flourishing? Today's guest, Karen Rands, is not merely a leader in early stage investing. She is the founder of an entire movement known as the compassionate capitalist. Along these lines, she has been able to be a best-selling author of two groundbreaking works: Inside Secrets, Angel Investing, Inside Secrets to Crowdfund Investing. Follow Jane's journey. These are best-selling reasons and reasons for them to be bestsellers because the conversation confronts a defining question of our economic moment. How do we democratize wealth creation without diluting wisdom, lowering standards, or compromising stewardship? So if this conversation has gotten you thinking, is there a way to articulate your expertise, to clarify your message, or capture your life's work as a global work of art? Then I'd be honored to work with you. With that, I want to welcome Karen to the program. How are you doing today, Karen?
I'm terrific. Thank you, Mick. What a wonderful introduction.
Well, I certainly try. And so I've been looking forward to this because this is such an important topic. So please tell us, how do you become the compassionate capitalist?
Okay, so that I had adopted that term. Let me go to the very beginning when I first discovered angel investing. I had
Mhm.
left corporate world and was had been invited to this event because I had a client, former customer, that I decided to go and be a part of his organization to help him raise capital. And I was invited to this group. And the founder of that group decided that I had potential. I was enthusiastic and ambitious. And so 20 something years ago, he had invited me to be mentored. Mentored by him
Right.
to ultimately take over operating and running the organization. And when I first met angel investors, I had never, this is part of, my journey of unpacking to the current book, was that I didn't understand it at the time. And it took me many years to figure out that I had never heard of the term angel investing when I was at IBM working with venture capitalists and banks and all these people to get companies funded. And I remember talking to one of the investors and asking him, how did they learn how to do this? How did they become an angel investor?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I, came into some money when I retired or got a golden parachute or something. And I got invited to this meeting. I started investing. I lost money on my first three deals. And then I started to figure it out. And I thought, that is a horrible way to learn how to become an investor, is to learn by losing. And it hit me that part of the reason why the wealthy, those that have been traditionally the angel investors, the ones that had a seat at the table to be able to pick and choose who were going to be the companies whose innovations would get to market and impact the
Mhm.
world, right? They're the
Sure.
sharks, people call them, right? But really, I call them compassionate capitalists because their goal is, and the expectation is, to make money. But they choose to make their money by investing in companies that they're passionate about the problem that they're solving.
Okay.
And it was, to me, it was like, wow, they could invest in anything they want. And they don't, yeah, risky. All the assets that you can invest in have been proven to be pretty risky. It's just, angel investing, and therefore the derivative, the baby steps of that, crowdfund investing, have been proven to be three times as profitable as traditional investment if for comparable portfolios. So during the Great Recession, when things were really struggling, and I knew that reason why this is to the point about the economy is that jobs are created with the startups that grow and create new jobs.
Mhm.
And to me, the best way for us to come out of the Great Recession was to be able to encourage people that had the capital, had the liquidity to invest in entrepreneurs, to create these new jobs. If they're a market maker, meaning that they're creating a whole new product, which ultimately creates a new segment in an industry that has a ripple effect of other companies, going into that particular sector or industry or that solution, it has a whole nother amplifying of the jobs and the opportunities and the wealth, because incomes, jobs, and, everything that happens as part of that. That was the way to do it. So I had my podcast at the time was focused on an event that we did every year. There was a big private equity conference so I called it Spec Talk Radio. And I changed the name to the Compassionate Capitalist Show because I wanted to amplify that message. And I wanted to encourage investors to get their money off the sidelines and put it to work in investing in the companies that they were passionate about, that they believed had the potential to succeed, make an impact, and then therefore, turn our economy around. And ultimately, that's really what happened when the Jobs Act was passed in 2012. That was Congress stepping up for that same purpose.
So interesting enough, I certainly want to delve into your books and the content of it, but I had to wonder about this. You have to say compassionate capitalist, and there are other isms that are around. For example, socialism, which is generally seen as more compassionate. So why compassionate capitalist? Why does that need to be said?
Well, okay, so I know capitalism gets a bad rep every once in a while because there are people that have achieved great things as capitalists and then choose to be selfish and greedy in their wealth. But but you can, for every one of those that chooses to spend millions and millions on another yacht versus, putting their money to work, like, the Gates Foundation in solving problems in the world, you have our economy exists on capitalism, buying and selling things, buying low, selling high, finding the reason why, the best product that people want to buy only happens because of capitalism, because people are competing for the dollars of that consumer. So they have to rise to an occasion of them making a good product, right? And sometimes under systems that are driven by, I don't know, just a lowest common denominator kind of a thing. Without getting in too much into the isms, is that, to me, it's better to have capitalists as the DNA of America, because it makes people work harder, because they want to strive to be better, because they are inspired by those that have done better. They want to start a business. They want to be their own boss. We have within our psyche this idea that the best way to create financial independence is to be your own boss and be an entrepreneur. But the reality of that is that every one of those highly successful billionaires, let's say, or even, somebody that you don't, isn't a name brand, but they built a company, they have generational wealth because their family have built a company up that creates revenue and income and prosperity for their family for many generations to come, only happens in a capitalist society where it's fair and equal for anybody potentially to do that. But the ones that really rise up, the thing is that not everybody has the ability to be a successful entrepreneur. It is a unique fortitude of the highs and the lows, and the all of it, just so much that goes into, the entrepreneur is the one that's most passionate about what they're doing, but they get to the ebb and the flow of starting up, be able to create revenue, and then be able to pay bills while your revenue is waiting to come in. Right. Requires capital. Okay. And so that is typically investors. So every billionaire out there, I mean, I used Gates as an example. When Microsoft went public in the 1980s, 1 million millionaires. Okay. It's like, because of their employees that had stock. That's the conscious capitalist side of capitalism that says, I'm going to be good to my employees. I'm going to be good to my community. I'm going to be good to my environment. I'm going to be good to my customers, my vendors, right? That's a different, compassionate capitalism is outward looking. Conscious capitalism is inward looking from a company or from a wealth standpoint. And, the people, the investors that invested in them early on, that believed that either he, as this geeky guy, had the ability to change the world with his operating systems initially, and then what vision he had for applications, to all the other investors that invested along the way, Microsoft would not be here today. Facebook would not be here today. Google would not be here today. The things that we take for granted, our phones, every invention you think about, all of the stuff that we use in these things now, somebody had an idea and other people invested in them until the common person knew that this thing existed, right?
Sure.
And so investors have been part and parcel for everything that we have progressed in our society. And they are the compassionate capitalists because they take a risk in doing that, because they believe in what the future that they can be, the impact they can have, the legacy they can create in their own world, even if they aren't the entrepreneur that's taking 10 years to achieve it.
Sure. Well, let's dive a little bit into the books as well. 2 groundbreaking books. How did they come together and how did you write them? What was your process like of putting those books together?
So the first book, Inside Secrets to Angel Investing, came out in 2017. It was, I mentioned, so my angel investor group, and with the Great Recession, things got to the point that it was unsustainable. I had to sunset that. But part of it too was I saw great opportunity with the Jobs Act that was passed pretty much unanimously in Congress in 2012. It took till about 2015 for most of the 4 different ways of raising capital under direct public offerings, general solicitation, crowdfunding, to fully be released and authorized by the SEC. And I had this great fear at the time that this perception that angel investing was really risky. It was like gambling, which was I don't want to say it was a myth, but it was a redirect of wealth managers and financial planners in what to invest in, because out of fear of losing their license, not because it was actually risky. They just weren't allowed to advise their clients about angel investing. And so they had to figure out something else to say, right? And so I said, I felt like everybody was going to rush into wanting to be an angel investor. They're going to like watch a video and throw their money in and do like that first guy, lose money on the first 3 and be like, oh, man, they were right. My financial planner was right. My buddy, the stock market guy was right. I should never have done this, kind of a thing. And to me, that would be a really horrible, on this burgeoning, with all the potential, of how we could change the world by the democratization of the capital markets, meaning that entrepreneurs could raise capital from anybody. They could raise capital from their investors. They could raise capital from their community. And those investors that have experienced the great loss of the Great Recession, of losing rental properties because they had them with mortgages. They bought into this concept of buying rental properties, but they had mortgages they couldn't cover, right? All at the same time. Their income didn't cover multiple mortgages, their W-2 income, or their 401ks collapsing in the financial shutdown that we had back then. But this is a way for them to invest in the things that, people had been investing in or had been putting money into under reward-based crowdfunding, our smartwatches, our 3D printers, drones, Oculus headsets, right? I use this as an example all the time, because the Oculus, the VR headset came to market. Some kid in a garage invented this, raised a couple $1 million from people buying it before it was generally available. So people said, ooh, this would be cool. Let me put $1,000 or whatever to get one of these things. And then fast forward 5 years, 6 years, 8 years later, it's in my book, but I don't remember right off the top of my head, Zuckerberg from Facebook bought it for $800 million. So at that point in time, the people that had put $1,000 in, what did they have? They had an obsolete piece of hardware that they wouldn't even work on whatever the new technology was. But had they been allowed to put $1,000 into investing in equity of that company, what would that have been worth? 8,000? 80,000? We don't know because they weren't allowed. And the only reason why they weren't allowed was because of income, and income being associated with intelligence about finance. And, yes, if you don't have a lot of money to work with, you don't strive to learn how to work with it. But the opportunity, you can invest in the stock market, you can invest in crypto. All you got to do is be 18 years old. Nobody says you don't make enough money to do that. But we don't limit people's ability to go really gamble and spend 20,000 on the crap tables in Atlantic City or Vegas, or $500 a month on a lottery ticket. But we're telling them they can't invest in entrepreneurs that are down the street or wherever, right? And so it was a time that I thought people would be like, oh, yay. So the first book was I had written in order to rebuild my angel group. When I took it over, I had done ebooks back when ebooks were just PDFs that you emailed around. And I said, okay, I've got to write this up in a book. I need to have a step-by-step how-to, right? And I wanted it to be, really official, like, so it has footnotes, it's got a glossary, it's got, an addendum, it's got all this stuff, and it was really meaty, and I wanted pictures, and it has my inside secrets, 44 of those, which are kind of like just thoughts about deeper into that, quotes of billionaires, all this stuff in there. It had all these things in there. And it was, I thought I could just update the ebooks, and I realized they were so out of date. And so it really was, so for the first book, I really had a brain fart, if you will. I could not get through editing and modifying it because I was stuck on my old language. And when I went back and read it, I was like, oh my God, this is so horrible. How did I even put this out there to people, right? And so I had a coach that was helping me on speaking and writing. I had gone to one of his workshops, and he said, the way I do it is I ask myself questions, and then I outline what's going to be in there and what it is. And then I record my answers. And this is before we had all the tools that we had, because this is 2015, thereabouts. I answer those questions, transcribe it, and then I work it up and put it together, right? Sure. And so, that was how I did it. AI wasn't a thing. It was just, but I did this. I hired an editor to help. I hired somebody to help me figure out how to get it to market, right? Because KDP didn't exist at the time. It was Create Space. And she suggested an editor that went through and said, this is really, too dry. Nobody's going to want to read it. You got to take out all the legalese about all the regulations and stuff like that. That's why it became an addendum. So then I had to rewrite it, because when you take out something that's referenced, you got to go back and look to see where it's referenced. And so I got it done. And then I sat on it for like 4 months because I reread the first 100 pages and kept rewriting it. And finally I was like, Karen, get this out into the marketplace, because, most people are going to get past the first 100 pages anyway. And so, at least if they do get past that, they'll like what you're doing. They'll really want it and all that kind of stuff. So that was the first book. I discovered though, that the secret of angel investing was that the term angel investing was still a secret, and nobody was looking for a book about angel investing if they don't know the term. Like I discovered, I didn't know it when I left IBM. I was like, I'm not looking for a book. If I named it How to Invest in a Company Before They Go Public or Get Bought and Make Money Doing It. Okay. But that would have been a really bad title too, but at least it would have explained it, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward to the new book, right? Okay. I have this mission and purpose of like really uplifting what I call millionaire adjacent, or not yet a millionaire, or accredited adjacent, the not yet an angel investor, that are the strivers, the women, people of color, millennials, Gen Xers, Gen Z, whatever, that are the younger, the Xers, the Gens, and are all like feeling, I don't know what this 40-year work world looks like, because my parents are still working and worried about retirement. And, what is the point of that? I need to get a side gig. I need to do all this other kind of stuff. And they're stressing themselves out. And I'm like, and I've said, I've got to give them hope and inspiration that there is another way that they can share in the passion of the entrepreneur see without all the risk of being the entrepreneur. And women and people of color have been left out of a lot of the mechanisms for creating wealth generationally because of the laws that prohibited their ability to buy a house in their own name, to invest in, start a business, get a business loan until 1984, right? When legislative action eliminated those discriminations, right, at least on paper. And they lingered for a lot longer afterwards. So, this was, if it's something that entrepreneurs, investors, high net worth investors use to compound their wealth. And if the people that aren't there yet could accelerate and leap the wealth gap by learning to invest this way, how do I get that message out there? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted something to be simple. At this point, I had hired a ghostwriter to help me basically do the process that I did before, where I outlined it. Then they would ask me the questions. I would answer it. They would record it. They would write it up. And I had been working on a different book for entrepreneurs that was it was too ambitious. They couldn't, now it's making progress now. But at the time it was years in thing. And the writer I had was this particular one was pretty good at business and kind of got my voice. And so I said, let's work on a different book. I have a smaller book, a simpler book I want to work on. So November of last year, so just a year ago. Yeah. So the first one was two plus years in the works. And then it took me 6 months or so to actually be confident enough to put it out there, because I am a woman in a man's game, right? When I was an running the angel investor group, oftentimes I was the only woman in the room. And so I had that imposter syndrome. This one I knew was going to be much more of a relatable story. It still has steps in it, but there's no footnotes. There's no how-to. There's no step-by-step. There's none of that. And as I progressed through that, the story of Jane started to kind of come out. Like I wanted to show Jane as this typical kind of she's a conglomerate of a bunch of different people I've met along the way that asked me, how do I learn how to do a crowdfund invest? Oh, my kids are out of college now and I'm trying to figure out how to prepare for retirement. That sounds really exciting. How do I do that? There were people that I would meet along the way. And so when I got the version back from the ghostwriters, it was about 100 pages. And I gave it to a friend of mine who is a quick read, highly intelligent, in my target market, this striver woman, that I knew could get it done, would read it. I asked multiple friends if they had time to read it, that I wanted to get their perspective on. She raised her hand and she came back and said, I want more of Jane. So I went through and rewrote it to take things where I said, and then go and do A, B, and C. It would be that, and Jane figured out using, because I have a training that goes with it, figured out how to do that. She should do A, B, and C. And this is what A was, and this is what B was, and this is what C was, right? So I use her journey, right, to show how to build a portfolio of companies and how to decide how much money do you have to invest. So she goes through a process that she's still got savings. She's still got, liquidity to pay all her bills, to continue to save normal, right? And, she has a side gig as a yoga instructor or Zumba instructor or something to pay for her vacations. And then I had to add my inside secrets, right? And so it became 198 pages, right? And the way I rewrote it to be that. So it's, I'm really happy with it. People have said it is inspirational to them. And it really opens up this whole conversation of investing, impact investing and compassionate capitalism in a way that I never could with the first book.
Awesome. There's always a question, since you've got two books there, who do you decide to publish with? And there are various options, right? There are vanities, there's hybrid, traditional, self-publishing. What was your thought process for those books?
Well, so I had bought a book. Guy Kawasaki had written a book called Ape, authors, publishers, and editors, I think is what it stands for. And so that was sort of like my Bible of how to go get published when I knew nothing, right? In 2014 or whatever. And there was a product called Create Space that made it pretty easy, and you could put Amazon was, you know, the easy place to go to put it out there, and people were buying books from there. And you get your ISBN number, and I had one for bookstores, because in Create Space you could do that. You could do Amazon and libraries and bookstores. You just had to get a different ISBN number. And so so that was how I went through Create Space, and I put it out there in that way. And it was only available in paperback. Audible was really difficult to get done at the time. And I don't even know if they offered hardback or not, but it was just available that way. So on this one, Amazon bought Create Space and became KDP Publishing. So I had an account. It was easy to upload it. I worked with my ghostwriter to get it in the format that it needed, to help. It was actually quite more challenging than I expected to get the difference of the cover of a hardback versus a paperback. The dimensions, the way they calculate that with the number of pages. It delayed the coming out of the book, but it was able to come out in Kindle, paperback, and hardback on Amazon. They have a service now to do an Audible that I'm working my way through right now. But now I have to go and do the same process with Ingram, so that I can get into bookstores and libraries with the ISBN numbers there, because they, of course, they're competing with Amazon. They don't want to buy from Amazon. So that's the next step. And then there's a new service. I don't recall, I don't want to say the name wrong, but that you can, once you've done that, then you can print from your own website. And I think it might be Lola. And that you load it up with them, and they give you the links to sell it through your own website. So that'll be my next phase, because the problem with both Amazon or with like the book stuff, you can't bundle your books. I would like to bundle both of my books together for a combination price, or I'd like to be able to run a promo. Like I would have liked to have done a Black Friday, Thanksgiving promo, or a Christmas promo, or any of those kind of things back when Inside Secrets to Angel Investing, and it was on Create Space, I got to be a bestseller, was because I did a Labor Day promo, because put your money to work was kind of the theme of that. And they don't offer that now. You have to go in and manually change your price, and which takes like 24 hours for it comes off market, right? And so it's not as easy to work with Amazon if you want to do promotions, or you want to do a pre-release buy, or any of those kind of things. And so getting it up on Ingram, and now that I know that, I didn't know that before, I will probably in my next book, I will probably do that first, and then go to Amazon, perhaps, or do them, know about it to do them at the same time. But there's a lot more options now for independent publishers. And hopefully when I do the rewrite of this one, Inside Secrets to Angel Investing, which will be something for next year, for a new edition, I'll get a publisher that wants to help me put it out there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you had two very interesting books and a fascinating background. So what are you doing now if people want to reach out to you, get contact information, get a hold of you, and of course, where do they find the books, and what services do you offer?
Okay, so both books are available on Amazon. I have a author series page now. My vision of myself as an author is to be like a Robert Kiyosaki or a Sharon Lecter that has like this series of books, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot sort of in my brain, and to get done. So anyway, they're only available on Amazon at this moment in time. So you can go to Amazon, you can search on my name, you can search on Inside Secrets. You can, either way to find them. There's also, I'm sure in the show notes, you'll have my bit.ly link, my link tree that has links to all of the things. My big focus, for like the next steps of people is, to provide the necessary training. I say, you can get like people say, oh, I want to learn how to ski, right? And they can buy great looking outfits, and they can buy skis, or they can rent the skis, or they can get a lift, and they can go up to the top of the mountain, and gravity will help them go down that mountain. And whether they end up on the mountain in a swish face plant or something worse, oftentimes depends on luck, but you can improve your luck if you get training, right? If you get coaching. So the Compassionalist Academy, it's a smash up of compassionate and capitalist, is compassionalist, right? The new term, maybe Webster will put it into, it'll get so popular, it'll become a word one day in a book, a dictionary. But then there, it's from baby steps intro all the way through to advanced training. They have the ability to get my insights, and specifically to, in the master classes, like, what about this deal, Karen? I'm thinking about this. Help me figure it out. What should I be asking the entrepreneur? All those different levels of services on the investor side, on entrepreneur side, it's capital strategy stuff. But
outstanding. Well, you've been a wealth of information. I appreciate you taking the time. And I know you're busy, but thank you for adding to the program and giving us all this great stuff. And we want to encourage everybody to be a compassionate capitalist. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mick. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right. Awesome. So I hope you learned as much as I did, because I'd like to be a compassionate capitalist as well. And speaking of compassionate, thanks so much for the support of the program. That's for the publishers of both Burning America and On Track, Ian Hunter, for their continued support of the program and for all the efforts that I am engaged in and doing. So if you want to reach out to me, of course, you're available on LinkedIn, Doctor of Digital, PhD. And if you listen, subscribe, enjoy this program, and stay with us for all the episodes that are coming up. Until next time, this is the Doctor of Digital signing off. Deus Volt.